Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Rise of HXM, Human Experience Management. I'm your host, Lori Rudiman. What is HXM? Why are we here? Well, just as a reminder, Human Experience Management is a philosophy, it's a platform, it's a set of tools to put employees at the center of everything. So why do we want to put employees at the center of everything? Well, their experience matters. Their experience is incredibly important. And when you put employee experience at the center of everything you do, the organization and those employees win. And that's what this is all about. And I know someone agrees with me, and that's my co-host, Lars Schmidt. Lars, how are you doing today?
Lori, I'm doing great. It's great to be back, kicking off season 3. And, it's just exciting times as always. And I'm really excited to kick off the conversation today.
Yeah, I am as well. And Lars, I'm so glad we're, both vaccinated. We've gotten this far through the pandemic, and we're focused on reopening business. And that's what this is all about.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, our studio show can't be that far off. We're getting a little closer to having that live studio show. So.
Oh, wait.
That's awesome.
All right, so we've got an awkward pause here. It's my understanding that we've got a guest today. And Lars, I know today you were going to talk about why HXM is important to you, but we'll just skip all that and we'll go ahead to why Marcia is here with us today. So Marcia is our lovely guest, Dr. Marcia Robinson. She is passionate about human resources, their experiences, why it matters. So Marcia, who are you and what are you all about?
Geez, who I am. Thank you for having me. Good to meet you, Lars. Good to be here, Lori. And thanks to SAP for giving me the opportunity. I am what you would call a resolute inclusionist. I believe in screening people in versus screening people out. And that's kind of a philosophy that I grew up with on a small farm in rural Jamaica, where my parents would say that our small farm shouldn't just send their kids to school. It should send the community to school. And so I'm very community focused. And when I realized that some groups were being left out of the career development space years ago, I started the HBCU Career Center because we spend every day at the HBCU Career Center talking to people about why it really is about not what you want to be, but what you want to do with your life. And so we are constantly training and helping people identify what we call the real visa, your values, your interests, your skills, and your abilities. So, and looking for that in organizations. So this human experience management, it just fits. It fits with what my philosophy has been. So I'm thrilled that we're getting to that point as HR professionals where we're thinking about how we're going to put people at the center of our work.
Well, this has been a really interesting time in our society for human resources in general, right? The whole entire bucket. HR professionals have been asked to perform at a superior level, burning the candle at both ends. And Marcia, before I ask you the first question today, Lars, I wonder if you have any thoughts on what you're seeing in this human resources landscape and the opportunity that we've been given.
Oh my goodness. I mean, that's we may have to extend the show by a couple hours. I think that the events of 2020 have completely shifted the expectations of what HR can bring, not just to the business, but to the employees. And I think we're at this really unique time, particularly as we're all beginning to kind of plot and plan what our return to workplace plans will look like, what our work structures will look like, what flexibility means to employment. As we're mapping out all those things, we're kind of charting new territory for HR. So it's really exciting. And this is in the backdrop. There's been a lot of reporting lately about the upcoming turnover epidemic that we're going to see in business. So it's never been harder to hold on to those employees as well in the backdrop. So there's so many different factors at play right now. All of it is going to be centered on how we're leveraging HXM to both help us attract talent, but also retain the talent we have.
Amazing. Marcia, and forgive me, do you prefer Dr. Robinson?
No, Marcia works beautifully.
Amazing, amazing. Well, I'm going to ask the first question today, and how this works is that Lars and I are going to go every other one, because that's the kind of fun scripted stuff that we do here at the Rise of HXM. So I want to know from you how the role of HR is currently changing, especially given the last year. And I wonder if you can talk to that without using the buzzwords agile, pivot.
Man, pivot. If I can't use pivot, then I can't make a really, really one of my cool points.
No,
and is that HR really has been transforming, I'd say, for several years for a lot of different reasons. Definitely before COVID, we were in a tight, talent market. So that was driving a lot of changes. My research and work was about using artificial intelligence in the hiring process inside of HR. So automation, that was also driving changes, HR transformations through technology. So I think the pandemic just added this next push. And I think what happened with the pandemic is that we also have huge support. We have an ally in the public almost, because all of these discussions have taken place in the public sphere. And so it's not just HR that's hearing, leadership outside of HR was also hearing. So I think HR had an opportunity to, some of the things that we might have put on the table before that, weren't necessarily, didn't land in unfertile ears. We got a chance to do those things. And so if I can think of maybe the top three things that we're going to be maybe focused on over the next, say, 18 to 36 months, one of them is that we're going to continue this pivot. I hate to say that, but we are those people in the middle, and I write about HR not necessarily liking that role in the middle, because we get it from the employees and we get it from leadership. So I think moving forward, we're going to spend a lot of time facilitating remote work and everything that comes with that. The trust factor, the coaching of both leadership and employees through that process. We're going to have to get creative about finding and keeping talent. And that's why the human experience management coming right now is ideal, because we're going to have to think about ways to be more inclusive, be more customizing, regardless of what the benefits are. And we're going to have to embrace technology transformations like we haven't done before, because that's what's going to help us facilitate managing employee choice and giving employees options that are viable both for the employees and still keep employees productive, so we can still meet our business imperatives. That's kind of how I see it.
Really good stuff, really well said. And I love the fact that you brought in this like double disruption that the World Economic Forum is talking about, because you're right, HR is right in the center of that sandwich between the disruption of automation and digitization and also COVID. And before we move on to Lars asking you the next question, Lars, I know you have a real strong point of view around what the future of HR looks like. What did Marcia say that resonated with you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it jumped out, but certainly choice and flexibility. That's front and center for the field right now, because I think in particular, as we're designing kind of what these next practices look like, there's going to be kind of optionality in them. It's not going to be one size fits all. It's not going to be a playbook about, if you want benefits, here's your set package and it's rigid and there's no flexibility. If you want to work, cool, here's your desk and you're here 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. That's very different now. And so it's exciting to see how that develops. And this is kind of our opportunity to map that out. And there isn't really a playbook, and there's not a map to where we're going, which is really exciting. And, Marcia, I'm curious to kind of expand on that, like the role of HR, particularly as it came to leading our businesses through the pandemic and all of the events of 2020. It became much more strategic to the business and the continuity, and in some cases, very survival of business. And so I'm curious to get your perspective. Like, how do you see the strategic impact of HR evolving and expanding as it relates to, driving and supporting the kind of business strategy of the organization?
I think one of the things that the pandemic did for us was everybody was talking about business continuity, whether you were in HR, operations, sales, marketing. And I think HR had a chance to kind of flex some of our business thinking. And so I think that's something that I hope we hold on to, moving forward. And that's not something that we're going to kind of leave behind. But it's hard to change. It's hard to change from, when you're in an HR role and you might put the perspective of the employees or what you think the business needs on the table and then not have it be accepted. It's hard for you to build your confidence and keep going back. And, I say all the time that it's very easy to feel inadequate in HR because so much of what you do might get pushed back on. But I think some of the things that we're doing moving forward we're really pulling apart those silos that are inside of HR. HR is not just this one big monolithic function. You have our data people, or HRIS folks, our benefits folks, our recruiting folks. And even though they all have their own focus, I think through the pandemic, we learned how to work more closely together to bring bigger solutions with a multidisciplinary perspective and, even embracing the data. So yes, it's easy to talk to a leader about, employees and having 3 employees in the space, and one needs healthcare, one needs elder care, one needs childcare. To put data behind it, which I think is a lot of what we did during COVID, is to say, no, we have X number of employees who this is their focus. Why is it that we didn't think about some of that kind of flexibility before? And so I'm not hearing a lot of good business rationale for why we can't continue those practices. And so I think it's going to be up to HR professionals to kind of cauterize those things inside of the organization so it becomes a part of the organization culture moving forward. That, imagine onboarding and not having 50 people in the room and you're sending everybody to the same cookie cutter. Well, this is what our benefits does. It does this and it does this. And you have people who are sitting there saying, well, I don't really need any of those things. I need this thing, And I think we showed up as really flexible during the pandemic. And again, I'm not hearing business reasons why we can't continue some of those things. And I think that's where the data is going to come in to kind of help us with some of that, to say, yeah, this is working. Here's what here's the feedback. Here's what people are saying about this kind of customization. So,
yeah. I mean, I think having so much more than kind of anecdotal perspective is a big differentiator when you look at how these modern teams are actually bringing the data to back up their assumptions and their perspectives.
Absolutely, absolutely. That just helps with decision making moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Well, I'm grateful to hear from both of you on this topic because I think, this promise of automation, digitization, it's absolutely happening. It's almost as if it took COVID to move HR into the 21st century. And I think, there's that old quote that you never let a crisis go to waste. And I think this is really an opportunity to rethink the value that HR provides, to really make the case that we're important to the organization, the health, the productivity, and the profitability of an organization. But Marcia, you brought up that HR still lacks some confidence in certain areas. And I wonder, it's a chicken and an egg. Do we lack confidence, or does the organization lack confidence in us? What's really happening around the perception of the value that we provide?
It's a little bit of both. I wrote the other day about HR being somewhat technophobic, or known as being technophobic. And that's why I was really excited when I did my research and talked to HRIS recruiters and CHROs, and found that of the three groups, the recruiters were the least excited about the technology and where we're going, and if you look at their desks with, tons and tons of things to do and positions to fill and very little time, and a feeling of this is coming from above. I didn't decide that I wanted to, use technology to help me schedule interviews, because I have people showing up who are scheduled who I don't even know anything about. So I found that group felt a little bit put upon. Now, is the HRIS person thinking the same way? No. And was the CHRO thinking the same way? No. So it's a matter of us doing the work to kind of bring our whole discipline forward. And it's, starting to push ourselves into other disciplines, because we don't necessarily want tools that are built just by technology folks, really. Projects fail when you don't have interdisciplinary teams working on them. And so is it a little uncomfortable for HR to go be in a room with some technology folks? Yes, it is. But you know what? We know the people. We know the people experience. And that is just as critical. And we need to bring that into the room and not be afraid of that. So it's kind of a little bit of both, where I've seen HR professionals who weren't confident about the data that they were putting out. They didn't know where the data came from. They didn't feel good about speaking about, what the data was saying. And so my approach is always, you've told the anecdotes, now you have the data to back it up. And you can make a much more powerful case. But make no mistake about that, though, we still have leaders and executives who are going to go back to exactly what we were doing pre-COVID. We're trying, but you have leaders who are going to do that. That's going to be their default. And I think it's going to show in how they keep their people, who's going to retire, who's going to walk out the door. Headhunters are hunting nationally, globally, so it's a little bit of both. We have that reputation of being the HR lady, and we have to own that. Now, as an individual, I have to know that I have to go and explain to you why it is that I'm not your ordinary HR lady who just sits in a room. I can't imagine any part of the business that isn't impacted by what it is that I do. Right. You know what I mean? And I think once we build that confidence in ourselves as being valuable, and I think we were seen as valuable through the pandemic, and I think we have the public on our side. So I think it looks good moving forward.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, Lori, if you don't mind, I just want to jump in on one point that Marcia made there. I think when you look at the market right now for CHROs and chief people officers, it's on fire. I've never seen it. We've talked about this. I've never seen the market like this. So if you're watching and you're in one of those organizations and you've got a CEO that's pushing you to revert back to February 2020 days as if the pandemic didn't happen, you don't have to stick around. You've got some options. There's a lot of companies out there that are looking for you right now. So, the path forward is forward. It's not backwards. And,
correct.
You may have to leave your organization if they don't see that.
Really when you come out of a learning orientation, I mean, I run the HBCU Career Center where that's all we're about. We're about development. And so that is a contradiction if you're going to say, look at all we took on during COVID, but let's just go right back. And it's going to happen. And that would be a shame. That would be a shame.
Well, Marcia, before Lars asks the last question, I do want to jump in because I am passionate about really having examples out there, because if HR can see what it can do, they can actually be it, right? And so I'm so glad we have you here today talking about, leadership and, not being afraid of technology and really the promise and potential of the future HR department. So thanks again for being that example for all of us.
Yeah, and Marcia, I'm curious, as we talk about the core kind of component of HXM of putting employees first and building processes and systems for employees, what examples are you seeing out there, the companies, through the events of 2020 and even into today, that are really kind of shining examples of organizations that are truly putting their people first?
I was really struck the whole time by this entire symphony, this crescendo of empathy that really just rolled out through the pandemic. And so to see companies, talking to employees about their mental health, about wellness, about what wellness means when you're not physically in their space and they don't have to maybe see you, but when you are remote and dealing with just all kinds of issues. I really appreciated organizations at every level who welcomed that, who talked about that, who talked about that component of their employees' well-being, which drove additional services that needed to be added. And the other big thing was the learning, putting the learning available to staff so they could feel useful, and not just be around pandemic focused, but be thinking about building new skills and, how it is that we were going to work in this new kind of environment. Those two things really struck me, that empathy grew significantly and that learning became a part of the core of the organization. Because, if you were on the OSHA and the CDC and your state's health department website daily, weekly, it was a continuous flow of information and adjustments that you had to be making for your staff and keeping people safe for, 15 months, having workplace safety be a real priority. Those are the things that really struck me and that I see are changing. And like I said before, that HR people are building we're building our business skills. So we can talk about the organization at multiple levels, not just what's coming at us, but be proactive as well. So I think it's all exciting. We're probably the most capable people inside of the organization to ride through the change and help lead the change and manage the changes that are coming.
Well, I certainly feel like one of the most capable people I know. How about you, Lars?
Absolutely. Well, second to you, of course. Like Lori, most capable. Lars, like somewhere underneath Lori.
I'm glad I'm here.
There you go. Well, I'm so pleased, Marcia, that we had an opportunity to speak with you today. So if people want to connect with you, would you invite them to find you on LinkedIn?
Find me on LinkedIn. Absolutely.
Great. And Lars, before I hand it off to you to close us out, I just want to say that, one of the things we talked about today, a major theme, was that experience really wins. Like employee experience is incredibly important. With digitization, automation, all the things that are happening in this world in a post-COVID environment, when you focus on experience, you win. And so I want to invite everybody who's watching to really get on board with this, because this is truly the future of human resources, of the people organization, right? Experience matters. So if you're doing something cool at work and you have a win for your organization or even a win in your professional life, I would love to see it. And so I'd like to invite you to tag me, to tag Lars, but more importantly, to use the hashtag experience wins and HXM, hashtag experience wins, hashtag HXM, and we'll find you, we'll give you a shout out, but we want to see how you're putting people at the center of everything you do. I think it's such a cool idea. This is the future of work, and I'm totally behind it. I don't know, Lars, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, it is, and I think if you're not doing that, you'll experience what the opposite of winning is. I think it's not a question of if it's important; it's an imperative, and especially given where we are right now and the opportunities and just the way things are going. If you're not focusing on really truly building a employee experience that matters for all of your employees, you're going to struggle. And so, yeah, that's so spot on. And Marcia, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your wisdom with all of us. Lori, thanks again for all of your leadership and wit as always. And thanks to all of you tuning in. If you want to learn more, go to sap.com/HXM, and they will help you find ways to bring experience winning into your workplace. And next week, be back. We're going to be back on Wednesday with Nestor Marquez for an exploration of HR in Latin America. So really excited about that conversation. Lori, let me give you the last word to close us out.
Oh my God, Lars, it's good to be back. Season 3 is already on fire. I'm stoked about it. And everybody out there, we will see you soon. Be safe and go science. Yeah.
Yeah, science.